As we were just discussing, a very important day for David Saint-Jacques. And we know that Chris Hadfield was the first Canadian to perform a spacewalk, and he knows exactly what Saint-Jacques is going through right now. And he's joining us from Toronto. Hello to you, Chris Hadfield.
Hi, Aarti. How are you today?
Good. It's so wonderful to speak with you. So first, I just want to get your thoughts as you watch David Saint-Jacques take those first steps. What went through your mind?
Your brain is full of the necessity of the moment, especially that clip you just showed when you're coming outside for the first time. The procedure is extremely stringent, and you have to do every step right. If you don't get your first tether connected in the right spot, then you're going to float off into eternity. Your suit has just sort of come alive, pressurized to keep you alive out there. So it's very critical. But then you are smacked in the face with their first view of the world, just through nothing but the plastic of your visor. So suddenly you can see what you've only imagined and dreamed of before. And it's very different than just looking through the window from inside. You know, imagine if you're on a skyscraper sitting inside looking out the window. It's a very different experience than Spider-Man has hanging on the outside of the window, and that's who you are. And so I know very well the suddenness and the fascinating change of the perspective of where David is. You got to focus, you got to pay attention, but boy, you don't want to miss the wildness of what's happening around you.
And it just sounds so incredibly overwhelming, absolutely, when you're talking about, sure, there's the training, but then when you actually get out there, how do you know that your training is going to serve you so well? It must be really extraordinary and intense to prepare to get up there.
I don't know if you've ever been surfing or body surfing, but you know, you're out there paddling in the water, and then you see a wave coming and you start to paddle like crazy, and then suddenly you catch the wave and you can feel that, wow, this is actually happening, and I know what I'm doing. And there's a wonderful feeling as you've actually got yourself in a position to ride that wave. And that's what a spacewalk feels like. You're busy, you're focused, you're wondering if you really know what you're doing, and then you get the first thing done and the second thing done, and suddenly you realize, I'm riding this thing. This is actually happening around me. I'm the person of the 7.5 billion people that is able to do this thing right now. And there's a great momentum of I don't know, pride and competence and wonder in what's happening. And so that's a really nice feeling that David has right now. He's focused, but he knows just how rare this experience is in his life.
Rare, and also we know how the incredible level of skill, rather, that you need to carry this out. We heard it being described as trying to do detailed technical work wearing hockey gloves. So maybe sort of walk us through exactly what's happening out there and some of the challenges in terms of the maintenance work.
Well, a lot of the stuff they're doing, in fact, if you're watching right now, the space station is covered by armor. It's not very thick, but it's to protect us from the constant sandblasting of tiny meteorites that hits the space station. You need that armor to protect everybody inside. But to do the work, they have to now sort of undo those big armor plates, pivot them up out of the way, and then work underneath them. Everything has a sharp edge. You're wearing a pressurized balloon with just rubber gloves, sort of. I mean, they're pretty nice rubber gloves, but essentially that's all you have. So your body position, it's like wearing a spaceship more than a space suit. Trying to get the right angle, the suit resists every motion because it's pressurized to about the same pressure as a volleyball. So just closing your fists is like squeezing a tennis ball or something. So you're fighting the suit, you're trying to be efficient, you've got to run this marathon for 7 hours. And you're doing really critical, finicky stuff, all the cable work, the mechanical stuff they're doing. It's a huge, complex, choreographed ballet of rock climbers out there. And so, yeah, you come in from it. When I came in from my last spacewalk, I didn't even know how tired I was. They got out of my spacesuit, and I floated up to a corner of the ship and just sort of sat there and shivered for 15 minutes because I'd worn out everything, and my body was just trying to get its temperature control back so that then I could start putting my suit away. It's a big, physically demanding day, but David's in the thick of it right now.
And I wanted to ask too, I mean, certainly with all of this training, one would expect that things should go according to plan. It is so technical, it is so detailed, it's such a specific skill as well. But we heard one anecdote as well, how some tools once went out into the oblivion. So if something like that happens, if you drop something by accident, what happens from that point? What are the next steps? How do you rectify something like that?
Well, we work really hard not to lose anything, just like any construction worker that's working up on a high building, because of course whatever you let go can be a threat to someone else. On a high building, it'll fall. On a spaceship, it'll just be in a slightly different orbit than you, and 45 minutes later, it'll come back and hit your ship from a new direction. So there's that. But the more important thing is, if you lost something, what if it was the only one of those tools that you had, or if it was a piece of equipment that you really needed? There's huge consequence. So we're very careful and methodical not to let anything slip out of our grasp. But the suit also is just barely protecting you from the absolutely wickedly fatal environment of the vacuum of space. It's just a little bubble of air around you. And if the suit has a malfunction, or if we catch our hand and pop a little leak, then you've got to work really quickly to get back into the airlock. Or if something fails inside the suit, where you get contamination in your eyes, or we've had some where the water cooling system started to malfunction and envelop someone's head in water, almost coming down to drown them while you're outside. All of those things are possible. So that's why we train. It's how you can keep your heart calm while all that's going on around you and still get the job done. And if you have just enough capability to muster, to notice just how beautiful it is, so that you can think about it for the rest of your life.
And you know, some of the visuals that we're looking at right now, Chris, we've got a helmet cam viz right now, and we were looking at both of the team working up there. And you described it as a choreographed ballet. And of course, in any sort of choreographed dance, which I definitely know better than spacewalking, there needs to be an immense amount of trust between the two individuals involved. So talk a little bit about that. How much of teamwork is really put into this, and how much do you have to trust the other person you're up there with?
David and Anne have been training for the spacewalk for years, longer than a university degree. They've been preparing to be able to do a spacewalk. And, you know, in the descriptor, people say, oh, they're participating in a spacewalk. That is so underrepresentative of the amount of work that goes into it. They are the only two human beings capable right now of doing this thing, after focusing years and years of preparation. It's hard. And you trust your life to that other person. While we're underwater training in the pool, we have a thing where suddenly the trainers will say, okay, David, you are now, whatever, incapacitated. You're getting the bends because of the pressure differences, or you've gone blind, or you've lost communication. And the other person has to be able to come over at a moment's notice and rescue you, get you, manipulating this enormous thing. The suit weighs twice as much as David does, and get it back and stuffed into the airlock and hooked up to the ship's oxygen in the time that is needed before the person dies inside the suit. You're always just a second away from that happening. And you're trying to get all these things done, and the clock is just ticking relentlessly on you out there. The time is your enemy during a spacewalk. So all of that is going on. So not only are you trusting the other person with the technical details, but you're counting on them with your life at any moment. And that is part of the training, but also the life and the psychology of being an astronaut.
And talk about pressure, my goodness. I wanted to ask too, as you're watching this video, does it feel like it was just yesterday that you yourself were on a spacewalk? Does it take you back immediately, or does it feel like it was some time ago? How do you feel when you watch these images?
I've been lucky to do a lot of different things in my life, and to me, they all still exist in the present. You know, I was a fighter pilot defending Canada, intercepting Soviet bombers in the Cold War, and I've done spacewalks, and I've commanded a spaceship, and to me, they all just sort of contributed to who I am today. And they're part of one long continuum. And so when I watch David and Anne out doing great work today, it's just very much part of who I am. And I know that Canada's other two spacewalkers, Dave Williams and Steve McClain, they feel the same way. We contributed so hard and so many years to try and be able to do that thing. So proud to watch David doing such a great job today. and it's almost like part of my modified DNA. This is the type of thing that I really tried to turn myself into. And so, yeah, it's very visceral, and I love it. I feel like I contributed to it, but I'm really proud to see how much further it's come since I did my first spacewalk back in '01.
So no question, you'll be glued to the screen as we are watching this, with such intensity. I wanted to just very finally ask, what we know we're not even quite halfway through, as it could take up to 7 hours. What are you going to be watching for as the mission moves through the day?
Something I used to train people to do spacewalks as well, and something I constantly reminded people was there's no such thing as the end of an EVA. There's no such thing as EVA or spacewalking cleanup. The last 10 minutes is just as critical as the first 10 minutes. You have to maintain that peak level of focus and keep drawing the energy. You can't eat in the suit for 8 or 9 hours. There's just a little bag of water. So you somehow have to keep drawing on your own reserves for peak performance right up through the very last step is done, when the hatch is closed, when the air is repressurized around you and you can safely pop your helmet off. And that's what I'll really be watching for, is can David carry all those things out, maintain that amount of workload and focus right through the very end of this walk, really carry the Canadian flag on his shoulder the way everybody's counting on him too. He's a great and capable man, and I'm really proud of how he's doing, and I'm delighted to be able to watch today.
Such valuable insights from you today. Thank you so much, Mr. Hadfield.
Nice to talk with you. Thanks. And go David, and go the Canadian Space Agency. Good work today.
Yes, good luck to all of them up there. Chris Hadfield is the first Canadian to perform a spacewalk, and he was speaking to us from Toronto. Thank you, Chris.